Alrighty then, we've got a 2010 GMC Canyon, or Chevy Colorado. I guess it's going to be the same thing. And I've done a 5.3 LS swap, and I just wanted to do a quick overview of all the stuff that I found and what I did to make it all work. So yeah, there's my quick and awesome exhaust. So I'll start out at the back here. We've got the original transfer case from the 4-cylinder or the 5-cylinder, whatever you had. It's I think an Isuzu transfer case, and retained the wiring harness that went to this. So you have to kind of pull apart the engine harness and separate the wires that go to the transfer case. So you've got one connector here, and then there's two other small connectors that are up, that are like right there. So that's for your, I'm pretty sure your 4 low and your neutral sensor, and then your encoder, motor, majigger. I've got the original 4-cylinder Colorado cross member, mount, and adapter flange that goes to the 4L60. Now this 4L60 is from the donor truck that the 5.3 came out of, which is all 06 GMC Sierra. And I ran into a few issues. The biggest one was the interference of the 4x4 drive shaft. It's still fairly closer than I'd like it to be, but the valve body is right in the way. So that's about as much of that pan as that I could cut off. And hopefully it doesn't rub when you have this thing articulating over some steep terrain, but I think it should be okay. So the pan off of the Atlas 4L60 does not fit the 5.3 Sierra half-ton 4L60. The valve body is different. I even tried taking the accumulator off of the original transmission out of this truck and putting it onto this one, and it's all different. You might be able to do it, but you're going to have to take the whole valve body apart and off and really get more into it than I was comfortable doing. So that's what I came up with as a solution for this part. The oil pan, that was another couple days worth of work trying to cut and re-weld and fit and cut and re-weld and get this thing so that it's not leaking and clearing the front differential. That was hard. When you're doing your 4x4 wiring, make sure that this actuator is hooked up. There's a part of the harness that goes onto the frame rail or under the body there on the passenger side, and it has to be connected to the harness over here. So you've got a ground and a pink power, and then there's a light blue, and another black wire with a white stripe that have to go into the cab to the 4x4 computer. It will not go into 4 high without seeing this sensor there, and that's what locks the front differential in so that you have 4x4. You can use solid engine mounts. I made a couple brackets and some plates, and yeah, just kind of made those myself. There's no vibration or rattling or anything inside the cab. It's awesome, but you're gonna have to leave the transmission floating on the original mount if you do solid mounts up at the front. That's about it for underneath. The original transmission cooler lines, they fit the new transmission. All that stuff transfers over, but in my case, where this is an 06 transmission and this is a 2010 truck, the fittings that the lines go into were different, and I wasn't able to take the fittings out of the Atlas transmission. They use a different thread, so I had to modify the ends of the cooler lines to kind of shorten them a little bit, so that the clips would go in there and hold the lines in place. The rest of it's your basic LS swap stuff. Make sure your output speed sensor is wired, and all that other stuff is good. Your shift cable, that bolts right on. No problems there. That's all the same. And yeah, we'll go up top and take a look at the rest of it. So you can see we've got our gear shift indicator. We've got 4x4. We've got there's a traction control light that comes on, and the battery light stays on. I'm just gonna take those bulbs out or put tape over them. I might leave that one, and now it's just the burnout light. But about the only thing I couldn't figure out was how to make it crank over with the key. So I could do it, but what would happen was the starter would drag. It would drag for like 3 or 4 seconds after. So, you know, this doesn't do anything now. I'm gonna have to mount this starter button. That's no big deal. We've got our fuel gauge, and we've got our temp. So the temp works over the serial data line network. So there's a single wire that comes up to the OBD port, and from there it hooks back and it goes back on the purple wire that does the serial data network in the truck, and that communicates RPM and all the other functions. The same thing with your speedo. That's all done through that serial data wire, and I am extremely happy that that worked, because what I was trying to do before that was I had the original PCM wired in the corner here. So I watched a video, I think it was swap time, and yeah, here's the harness that I had made up. So it's pretty much all the like fuel injectors and ignition coils and all the sensors from the engine removed, and just the computer and the transmission control module and stuff wired up. And I think the way they did it was by linking the camshaft and crankshaft input sensors together, so that PCM still thought the 4-cylinder engine was in there and running. But you don't have to do that. And it's even more unusual because this truck is a 2010, so it's pretty much Gen 4. Like it's I'll show you the computer that was in there. It was this one. So this is like a Gen 4 style computer, and I didn't think that the Gen 3 stuff could talk to all the modules in the truck, but it does. And yeah, you don't need any of that hooked up. The only thing that it would have done is the starter relay with the key, because on these trucks the ignition switch is kind of like a low voltage resistor based thing. So the difference between run and start is like a resistance on the same wire, and it's all kind of controlled through the body control module over there. But yeah, but the only unusual thing with this is, you know, it has to have a starter button, or I'd have to find a different ignition switch that actually gave you a start, like a proper start relay switch. But I think the button's okay for this truck. Yeah, that was really awesome. So all the pink wires that went to all the power stuff on the 4-cylinder harness, I've just have those linked over to all the pink wires that power everything on this 5.3. There's a couple oranges, those go to the red and whites. for your constant power for the computer. And what else did I have to hook up? I hooked up, there's a wire for 4x4 low. And okay, so the fuel gauge comes over and it feeds into the PCM, and then it goes by data from there to the gauge cluster. So what I've done is hooked up to the 2 wires that go to the fuel sender here and run them over to the input for the Gen 3 5.3 PCM, and it shows up on the dash and it works, which is awesome. So pretty much what I plan on doing with the engine bay to clean it up is I'm going to move the battery over here, and then I'll have a nice little place to put the computer and the throttle pedal computer, because they're just, yeah, I'm not happy with how that's all kind of jammed in there. I want to be able to properly secure the battery and properly secure that computer and make the wiring look a little bit neater with the cover on the fuse box and all that. But yeah, it works pretty good. So I've got a mechanical fan on there, as you can see. No fan shroud, but it's keeping it nice and cool. Hopefully that's good enough. Otherwise I'll have to make some kind of a fan shroud to go around there. AC, that's going to be another fun one, whether or not the AC controls in the truck talk over the serial data network to this, because as far as I know, that the pressure switch is the same that was in the GMC Sierra, so I could wire that to the PCM, and then the PCM would control another relay that goes down to the compressor if it sees the right pressure in there. And I already have the low pressure line hooked up. The high pressure line still has to get connected in behind the grill here. You can see it goes into the front of the heat exchanger there. And the dryer bottle, I noticed, is damaged on the top, and that's probably why it had no gas in it. So AC is not super important right now, but I feel like it is a possibility since everything else is talking so well. But yeah, that's kind of an overview of what I did to make this work and light up the dash and everything. I'm pretty surprised it actually does, because these are totally different computers, and you know, one talks over the CAN bus and the other one talks over the serial data. But I don't know, it's you learn something every day. And there wasn't a lot of good information on the internet about doing this, especially the 4x4 end of it. There you go. For the throttle pedal, what I did was I took off the sensor and plug and this backing plate part off of the donor vehicle pedal, which doesn't fit. And I put that stuff onto the Colorado throttle pedal, and just ran the new wire down there, because it has a different connector on it, and I'm sure that there's a different resistance inside and calibration. So I did not know that these pop apart. The hardest part about it is getting the little feeler arm thing off of there, but I just used a flat blade screwdriver and popped it out of place, and yeah, that worked pretty good.